Welcome everyone. This is Trisha from 90 Turns, and we are back for episode 2 with Fabio Santos of Espiritualidade, Independente. So today we are going to talk about frequencies, and we're going to kind of go down the rabbit hole that is. Welcome, Fabio. How are you doing today?
I'm good, thank you. And you?
I'm doing wonderful.
Perfect.
So I thought today we would start out with talking about the Schumann resonance frequency, since it had a very large spike today. I believe that it went to above 70, right?
Yes.
Which is very large, and the standard is supposed to be, I think, 7.83 hertz.
Yes, that's correct.
Very large spike. For those of us who maybe aren't familiar with Schumann resonance, what do you think the Schumann frequency is?
So everyone, let's talk about us, human beings. So we have, everyone has a magnetic field. And this magnetic field has its frequency. So Earth has a magnetic field as well. And the frequency of this field is called the Schumann resonance. That name is because of the guy that discovered this field, that he was called Schumann. So that's named after him. And when it was discovered, I think in the 60s or 70s, the frequency, as you said, it was 7.83, 84. And it was measured from this day on. And when we hit the 80s, late 80s and the 90s, the frequency just went wild. It had some spikes of 10, 15, 20. And we saw that frequency going up, especially after the new millennium. And I think it was 2018, we had almost reaching 200 hertz. So it's 180 on 190. And you can start to think about what does it mean for us? So if we have a planet that has a frequency, a magnetic field of 7.8 hertz, the cycles per second, just not to get too technical about that, but just to see the numbers. If we have a frequency of 7.8 and in some period of time, I have the same frequency going to 180 or 70, as we saw today, that we're recording this conversation. So that's 10 times today. It went 10 times what it's supposed to be, or the original frequency. What does it do to us? If our frequency is theoretically the same and the planet's frequency is just much higher than it was supposed to be. If we talk about resonance, so we are vibrating at 7.8 and the planet is just going to 70. So what does it mean for us? Our frequency is going up. So that's pretty much what the planet's trying to do with us. Mm-hmm. and what are the outcomes of our frequency going up? So that's very broad, and we can talk a lot about that.
Yeah, and I think that's one of those golden questions too, is to find out what do these bursts and pulses of frequency actually do to the human collective, right?
Yes.
Because you're saying that the Earth has its own electromagnetic field, right? So this is kind of like, people say that the Schumann resonance is like a heartbeat of the Earth, right? And so we have all probably seen from the Heart Math Institute that image of a human body and then the toroidal field around us, right, when we're in a heart-centered space. But the Earth has that exact same field. And so going to the idea of that everything's interconnected, this is directly affecting us. And I think that we're all trying to understand, what do these giant bursts and spikes mean? Because you can look at the images and the graphs that show up, and it'll just be like a whiteout. And then sometimes the lines, like, there'll be no data collected. It'll just go black. Yes. And so that's curious to see when we have those blackouts in the graphs. Does it mean that it's so large of a frequency burst that it can't be calculated? Or is it something else? Is there an interference? Like, what does that actually mean? So it's very interesting to look into and kind of speculate, like, what is what does this mean and how does it affect our consciousness, especially during these turbulent times that we're all experiencing at the moment on a multitude of levels.
Yes. So, as well, referring back to our episode 1, so we have to make those questions. We have to be curious about it. And I think there are two major questions on this one: why this is happening, and what's the outcome, and what is it doing to us, right? And that toroidal that you talk about in our heart is the same toroidal on the magnetic field of our body,
Mm-hmm.
and also on Earth. And you mentioned that the magnetic field almost going to zero, almost collapsing, and it happened on April 9th. And we can search for the official numbers from NASA. NASA, they monitor the Earth's magnetic field, and it just collapsed for a couple of hours. We were exposed, almost completely exposed for a couple of hours. And the interesting part is that why trying to answer that part, why this is happening, right? So the first thing, we look for the sun, right? So let's see what the sun is doing, because when the sun has lots of activity, it affects a lot our magnetic field. It is the main reason of our magnetic field increases or decreasing, increasing or decreasing, right?
Mm-hmm.
And when we look at the sun on April 9th, or at any other day this year, the sun is very quiet. It is in solar minimum. What is solar minimum? Is that period of around 11 years that the sun is just quiet. And every 11 years, the pole of the sun, it inverts, and the sun goes from solar minimum to solar maximum. And the solar maximum is that another 11 years that the sun is just excited, just throwing plasma all over the place, and the magnetic field is huge and it's strong. But again, we are in that solar minimum phase. It began around 2016, 17, so it will probably go until 2027, 2028. So we are in solar minimum. So why are we seeing our magnetic field being so affected if theoretically the main reason for our magnetic field to be affected, it's the sun, and it's quiet, it's not doing much? So why this is happening? So there's one of thousands of explanations.
It's a very interesting thing to ponder as well.
Yeah. We are in a very curious and exquisite place in the universe right now. The solar system is passing through a cloud of photons. It's the photon cloud. It's called the photon cloud. And we, from time to time, we pass through the cloud. And when we pass through the cloud, so photons, light, the particle of light, right? Mm-hmm. And it's not something that it's metaphysics or spiritual. No, this is science. This is astrophysics, right? So we have this photon cloud that we are going through. That's why all magnetic fields, it's just not just Earth, it's from the whole solar system, and our sun as well. And we can talk about the solar minimum and the effect that the photon cloud is having on the sun as well. But all the solar system is passing through this photon cloud, and it's getting the magnetic fields excited. It's just going crazy, right? So this is all part of the closing of lots of predictions, from ancient predictions, that the time of the light will commence, or the end of the world, or new beginning. We are going to get out of the darkness and go to the light. So that is this photon belt or photon cloud that we are going through. That's one of the reasons why the Earth's magnetic field is going insane, and it's not just the only one. It's all from all planets from our solar system and our
So
sun as well.
so everything's being directly impacted by not only passing through this photon cloud, but then also within the own frequencies of each planet and how it
Yes,
interacts with one another. Because we know
yes,
also that like the Earth's axis, like its poles will shift naturally.
it happens.
So that
Yes,
is something that is a natural occurrence that we'd also have to take into account,
yes. And
right?
when we look at the Earth's history, it happens from time to time. And if I'm not wrong, last time it happened was 700,000 years ago. So pretty much the scientists are expecting that to happen at any moment. Any moment in Earth's time. And
Mm-hmm.
when we say any moment, we're not saying tomorrow. It can happen in 1,000 years. It can happen tomorrow. Yes. But when we say at any time, it's any given time in history, right?
Mm-hmm.
We're expecting that to happen. And lots of things we're expecting to happen, not just the pole shift, as the sun does every 11 years, 8 to 13 years, but 11 years in average, and Earth's it does that from 500,000 years or something, and it's been 700 to the last time. But lots of things are happening right now. Lots of things that we can see through science. Not just, oh, I have this crazy friend like me that comes with this spirituality stuff and talking about spirits and energy. No, we're seeing things happening. We can access, as I said, NASA website and see that the magnetic field went down, and we don't have a reasonable explanation for that because the sun is quiet on the
Mm.
solar minimum. So when we get everything into consideration, so Earth's magnetic field, our magnetic field being affected, of course, all the planets' magnetic field being affected, and the sun's, of course, as well. So talking about frequency, every planet has its frequency, and when I mess with this planet's magnetic field, I mess with the frequency as well. So we uh, as energy, we as magnetic fields, we feel all those frequencies. We feel the frequency from the sun, from Mercury, from Venus, from Mars, from the moon, from all the planets. And when I mess with this frequency, it messes with us.
Mm.
So we're saying that it's the awakening times that we are living. Oh, let's just go outside and have fun. That's not that's not the way it is.
Nope. No, it's actually very far from it at the moment in our where the world is sitting at, as a collective. And on top of it, all the internal things that we have to kind of feel through and go through, everything's coming up to the surface, as I'm sure many of us already know.
Yes.
It's like you take like a I don't know, like a blender, and you take all those frequencies and everything that people have to deal with, and you click it to maximum, and it's just gonna go and go and go, and
Yeah.
eventually it'll simmer down and calm. But you know what? Right now we're in the thick of it. You know.
We're at the beginning of it because
Yeah.
we just entered this photon belt, and we well, we can look back in history. When did it start? When does all this madness on humanity start? Like a couple of years ago. A couple of years ago, and in Earth's history, in human history, in our history, it was not that many years ago. We can say maybe what, 10, 20 tops,
Oh, but there's been so many
maybe
patterns,
30.
I feel like, that have been repetitive throughout like our
Oh
history.
yeah.
Like there's been cycles of just
Yes.
not learning from our mistakes or consciously choosing that same path.
Yeah.
It's but I could see, let's say, in very recent history, I think, yeah, the past 10 years have been very dramatic, and the
Yes.
way people have evolved and the changes that have been implemented. I'd say 10, 20 years on
Yes.
a global scale. It's been very pivotal to our own growth as a collective in humanity, and the things that have been implemented, for better or for worse.
Yes.
exist at the moment.
And if you focus on the last 3 years, just 3 years,
Yeah.
17 to 20, 16 to 20, 4 or 5 years tops. So we were supposed to get in this photon belt around 10 years, 8, 10 years ago. So the Schumann resonance, it went crazy, especially the last 5 years. And we are not that deep into it enough to look back and have all the clear that oh, okay, that's when it started. Oh, now I'm seeing. Maybe in 20 years time we will be able to look back and see, okay, now I understand, right?
Hindsight's always 2020.
And the process is just beginning. That's the thing. Things that we never thought that were going to happen, like this quarantine. When it started, people say, "Oh, everyone's supposed to be home. The government is going to shut down everything, and we're not going to be able to leave our houses." And nah, that's not happening,
It seemed extreme at the time.
right?
Hmm.
So we are seeing lots of those things, and I can throw some other lighter things, like we can say both of our countries. Well, I live in Canada, but I'm Brazilian. I can say both of our countries have unexpected presidents. So who thought Trump will win the election?
Certainly not media.
Well, that's
that's
for sure.
that's a whole nother topic, but
Yeah, and I can say the same in Brazil. Who thought Bolsonaro was going to win the election? 100% not the media. And both of our countries are still in election time. It never stopped. It
Mhm.
never stopped. So where is this madness coming from? And we can talk about the cabal. We can talk about, but as we are talking about frequencies, and frequencies, they affect both us and the cabal and
Yeah,
everyone.
no one's immune to it.
No one's
That's the
immune to
one
it. Yeah.
thing. It's like the ultimate neutralizer is that no matter where you stand on any topic, right? Frequency is something that penetrates through everything in existence, right? Like Nikola Tesla, it always says that if you want to understand the universe, right, you have to study the energy, frequency, and vibration, or something of that nature, right?
Perfect. Yes.
Like
Yes.
that's where none of us are immune to it. Plants are
Yes.
affected. Like it's all it gets really deep into it, but it's
Yeah.
great to
And it doesn't matter if you believe in it or not, because it's not faith, it's
yeah,
science.
yeah. It's based in actual science and logic and reasoning. Exactly. That's what's nice about it is that you can look at it from a spiritual perspective, right? As like the feelings and what's coming up for you, but also there's a lot of reason and science behind it, which is
Yeah.
I think a wonderful balance to put into perspective, depending wherever someone stands.
Yeah. And just to get more tangible on frequencies examples, and looking back 3 years, 5 years, and 10 years, just on my opinion, I think that the most extreme outcome of these frequencies that we are receiving right now is the polarity that we are on. Everything's 8 or 80 in politics, in sports, in any conversation, religion. Oh my God. Anything, any conversation. Look back 20 years, 30 years, 50 years, and look back for the last 3 years, 5 years. How polarity increased, how we are as humanity more radical in anything. We can see anything rather than what we believe. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
Even if we, and we were talking before, even if we present to someone logical research, data, numbers, and you can reason with someone, they just no.
It's because they have their cognitive, it's their mind can't allow themselves to comprehend the data, right? Because we look at this quarantine that's happening and the state of people's minds tends to either fall into the camp of fear, right? Or I don't want to say hope, but maybe resistance to fear is the best way
Yes.
I could explain it. It's either
Yes.
one or the other, right? So like we were saying, if we talk to someone that with data and science, right, and just statistics, very, very solid pieces of numbers, the fear programming is overriding any sort of logic and reason, which is
Yes.
unfortunately how a lot of, historically, this is how people have become controlled. Because if you program fear into someone, and even if it's not based, the fear isn't based in anything sound, right? You look at just the idea of like affirmations or repeating something enough times that your subconscious mind will grab onto it. It doesn't have to be true.
Just,
Doesn't
yeah.
have to be any basis or emotional thing to it, but it will grab onto it if it's repeated enough times. It's
Yes.
it's wild when you look at like the father of advertising, right? His name is, oh, what is it? Bernays is the
Yeah.
last name.
Yeah. I have him on my last book.
Yeah,
It's a shame I can't remember.
I
Yes.
think it's Edward Bernays. Bernays is definitely the last name, but
Yeah.
he's the father, considered the father of advertising, and it's about repetitiveness and
Yes.
consistency. And
Yes.
you look at it, jumping down to like World War II, consistency was a very big part of creating these campaigns that made people
Sure.
turn against each other,
Yep.
you know. And now we're in kind of a similar realm where consistency from certain news outlets and certain programs and media, and even just the general collective feeling, right, going into a store and you see everyone wearing like muzzle masks, you know, and things
Yep.
like that, it subconsciously plants ideas into your head. And
Yep.
it's intense, you know. It's very intense, but I'm going on a tangent now about
No, but you're correct that this kind of fear, and that's another kind of fear related to those all those frequencies that are coming, that the fear of facing our own fears. So there's that.
Mhm.
So this frequency is making us face to face with our fears. So we have to face it. We have to face it, that we were wrong. We have to face that we went to a path that it's not okay. We have to face that we are not as good as we thought we were, or all those things that we have to face. Now, stepping into the spirituality side for a bit, what are these frequencies doing? It's just a big kick in the butt, if I can say that, to ascension. So let's just freaking awake, everyone. That's the frequency message. You're not awake by yourselves. Okay, I'm sending a little bit of help, and then a slap on the
Yeah,
face.
yeah. Just throw you around a little bit.
That's what's happening, and well, there are some people that deal with that okay, or at least as okay as possible, and that there's the majority of the population that is not even aware of what's going on.
Yeah.
It's just seeing the world is just pure madness.
Yeah. It's on fire.
It's on
Like
fire. Yeah.
it's just on fire and everyone's just gone crazy, you know?
Yeah.
But that's honestly what it feels like. Even from like our perspective that we feel like we might know something that's going on, it still feels very manic and very unstable, you know.
It is.
But from that instability, I feel like that's where people have that, like, a why. They have to choose, like, okay, do I want to
Yes.
understand what's going on? Will I even be open to the concept or ideas of an opposing opinion? Because that's what we need as any, I think, civilized human being. It's about having dialogue and conversations. If we stick into our own little like blinders, that's not helping anyone.
Yes. So
But
you're forced to make a decision. You
yeah,
have to make a
you
decision,
have to,
right?
you
Yeah.
know. And with everything that's going on in the world, I mean, you got to make it quickly too. We don't
Yes.
have time to drag our feet anymore,
No. And
you
it's the
know.
beginning.
Yeah.
So what's next? So that's the thing. And the frequencies are increasing. Things are getting more complicated. It depends on where you sit, but it's getting more complicated to the general population. Of course, it is. Even for us, that we are a little bit more knowledgeable on everything that is
If
happening.
that,
But
yeah.
even so, it's just a little bit, right? Because we're talking about it. That's it. But the general population. So what's going on? what's going on for them. So when we talk about all the things that we are saying now, the frequencies, the photon belt, okay, that's really nice. Now I have a little bit of information on what's going on, but what's next? Is my life going back to normal? So what's normal?
That's a really good question.
Yeah, and now tying to what you said before, that the media repeats something until it makes it true,
Hmm.
right? So now they are saying that what we are living is the new normal.
I hear that all the
Everyone is
time.
repeating that.
Yeah.
So we have a choice. That's another example, a tangible example. We have a choice. Do we want this to be our new normal?
Yeah.
Yes or no?
Will we accept it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
because
Very true.
it's for us to decide, not the media, not the cabal, not our neighbors. No, it's the collective,
Hmm.
global, the planet. We have to decide. We are facing right now a frequency question. What path do you want to go? Is this the new normal, or you want to build a better life than what we are seeing out there? Because we let that happen. We let that happen. So we will let the second wave, or I don't know what's coming next to happen, or we will create a better world for everyone.
I couldn't agree more. I think it's such a pivotal question to say, will we accept this? Because it's truly what that why that we're facing right now of going left or right. It is beyond things like political policies, right?
Oh
it,
yeah,
it, it
definitely.
goes beyond all this like 3D stuff. Okay, it is
It
something
is.
so much larger than that, and we can go on a macro level and explain that as well, like the galactic forces that are part of all this. But it's so important to know that we have the power to decide as a collective, right? Do we
Yes.
want Bill Gates to be the new poster guy to tell us what to do with our bodies, right? Do we
Yeah, that's
want
insane.
that? It's yeah, you know what I mean? Like he is his
Oh,
own
he's
person.
rich. I don't
Yeah,
care if he's rich.
he's not a doctor. And the doctors who are speaking out, they're being censored. The algorithms are tearing them down. You know,
Yeah.
it's all very implemented in a particular, but that doesn't mean that we have the choice to be ignorant.
Yes.
You know, we are living in a time of knowing and awakening, and this is where we grab our like the saddles right now, and we choose because we can choose. It
Yes.
is a completely internal, like right on an internal perspective, you have to make that decision for yourself. The people you're around, maybe they'll change, maybe they won't, but then you'll start vibrating on a frequency, right, that matches others that are going to feel the same way as you. It all ends
Yes.
up being frequency because we are vibrational beings. I'm
Yes.
sure everyone here listening to this knows that. But you making that decision internally and feeling it, believing it, and knowing it will then naturally propel you towards a different, like we like to say, timeline, right? But a different reality. You're going
Yes.
to see the world in a different way. And I mean, what you do with it is our decision as a
Yeah.
collective, you know?
You tune into a different frequency. That's it. It's
Yeah.
like a radio dial. What
Yes.
what do you want to hear? So what's the frequency that you're going to tune in? So we face every second we have to make decisions, every second, consciously or unconsciously, whether you are making that decision or someone is making for you. So that's the major decision that we're facing right now, because we have thousands of years in humanity history that someone made that decision for us. So it's time that we face all of our fears, all of our problems, all of our history, and try to know ourselves and know that God is not out there, it's inside of you. And if it God or the source, you can call whatever you want, it's inside of you and not outside. Why do I keep looking outside for answers if I have all the answers inside?
Yes.
So, and that's another fear my students and people from my channel and everyone that I talk to in my lectures, they come and say, "Hey, Fabio, so it's up to me to decide. Do I have all this power?" Yes, you
Yeah.
do. And people get afraid because, oh, now I have to do something. Now I have to make a decision. Now I have to make it happen. Yes. Isn't that great? No. I
It's
prefer someone doing that for
responsibility.
me.
Well, yeah. That could be, you know why though? Because it's easier when someone tells you what to do, right? You
Yeah.
don't have to put that energy towards anything else, but it's also very liberating to
Yes.
know that you have the choice within yourself to decide and you hold that power, right? Like that is, I think it's such a freeing and liberating feeling to
I
know
agree.
that oh my gosh, I'm not in chains. I don't have to be. If I want to, I'll stay in them, right? But I have no
Yeah.
reason to stay within the chains. And like you're saying, I love that analogy with the radio, because I mentioned that to friends too, to get them to understand certain
Yeah.
concepts. And it's such an easy thing, right? You just tune into what you do want. And it doesn't mean that you should ignore everything else. I think it's
Sure.
important to say you be aware of everything
Yes.
around you. But
Yes.
when you look at what you focus on, right? Keep that mindset there, because frequency and energy is constantly around you. You can't get away from it. So might as well
Yes.
be very conscious, right, of the frequency. Not afraid of things, but conscious and what's going on. I think it's important, very important.
Yes. And it's all about the minor decisions. People say, "Oh, I want to change the world. I want to change my country. I want to change the way humanity lives." I say, "Okay, calm down. Just you're too excited. Just begin with yourself.
Yeah.
By changing yourself, you change the world because we are all one. We are all connected." So what will happen to Earth, or what path humanity is going to take, is a result of everyone's choices. So just make sure that you're making the correct one for yourself,
Yeah.
and you're affecting everyone else. So every decision that you make, we co-create every time, consciously or unconsciously. So if you have a good job, that's what you co-created. If you have a lousy job, that's what you co-created. If you have lots of money, that's what you co-created. If you don't, that's what you co-created. And we can debate on that a lot. So people are getting on the extremes. Oh, so what the poor people on slangs in Brazil, or Bill Gates, we can get into that in another time. But for us, they're seeing this video and seeing this conversation between us. We're already aware that we need to make our own decisions and we need to co-create. And as you said, Tricia, this gives people the responsibility of doing it. So everyone that is listening to us now, you don't have escape anymore. You
We've
have
called
the
you out.
information.
Mm-hmm.
You cannot run. You cannot hide, my friend.
Yeah.
Now you have to make your own decision because you have the information. And I feel very bad for people that don't have that access to that information. That's the majority of people on Earth. But every day we're seeing that information somehow getting to places that we never thought it would. So it's not just us that we are on YouTube and we have the money to buy a computer and have internet access. No, everyone on Earth is on an awakening process.
Absolutely.
Different paths, but everyone is on an awakening, and they have to make their choice.
And you know what else I think is really interesting is about the concept of, do I have to do something, right? Now with this information, do I have to actually do something, or can I just be, right? And by choosing a certain like something simple, like you get up and you eat something for breakfast, right? Are you going to go choose McDonald's, or are you going to make just like some eggs and toast, right?
Perfect.
Those such a simple thing, but it's just choosing to be a different way. It's not that you have to go create a channel like we have. You can just,
No.
it's truly just embodying the essence of who you want to become, right? If you're not there where you want to be, how do you get to point B if you're at point A, right? You have to start changing those, like you mentioned, those little, it's all very small decisions that actually end up making the biggest waves later. You know, changing the world is a lovely, admirable, noble thing to go towards, you know, but it's those little tiny decisions on a day-to-day basis that will
Yes.
ultimately create the ripples in your communities. And I mean, just look at like your local governors or whoever, just look at all those little decisions that we've all made as a collective that now is
Yes.
changing the way we live our lives for better or for worse.
Yes, I think we can start with ourselves, as you said. What you choose to eat. I always say you have to look for your body, your mind, and your spirit, right? So
Trifecta.
what you eat, what you drink, and then what you consume, not just with your mouth, but with your eyes, with your ears. So the places, what do you read? The places where you go. Are you doing on your free time? You can always go to therapy if you feel the need to, and all kinds of therapy. I'm talking about psychologist or Reiki, or I don't know. You can get help, and by wanting to change the world is very noble, but you need to start with you, and then with our home. So are you being patient with your boyfriend or girlfriend, your husband, or with your parents, with your friends, with your co-workers? So are you saying good morning, good afternoon? Are you being polite? Are you giving them attention? Are you listening? Or while they talk, you're thinking about what you're going to answer? Are you really listening? So the most precious thing that we have is our time. Are you giving your time to people? And I just gave an example by listening.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a step by step thing, right? Starting with you, and then you expand. My home, my neighborhood, my community, my city, and then you expand if you need to.
Mm-hmm.
But if you change yourself, it's more than enough to change the world.
Absolutely.
Definitely.
That's the key right there, is just that internal work, like the work that everyone talks about. Like the work is looking inside of you.
Yes.
That's
It's
plain and
simple.
simple.
It's not easy every
Yeah.
time. It's not easy, but it's simple.
Yeah.
It's very simple.
Agreed. And you know, something I wanted to mention about frequency, right? Like when it comes to music, right? So in the United States, they used to have the actual physical frequency of songs to be, I think it was at 432 hertz, and then
Yes.
sometime in the, I think, early 50s they had switched it right down to something very minimal, to
440.
440.
Yeah.
Really tiny difference, right? And that makes an impact on our the way that we
Yeah.
consume the music, right? The
Yeah.
sound, like we know this, we're vibrational beings, but it's interesting to look at then impacts, like when you, there's studies out there that say that when like in South Korea they did a study where plants had listened to classical music in different frequencies, and some would have certain gene expressions when
Yeah.
listened to one frequency versus another. And so that's how we have to look at ourselves. All the things that we consume, especially like music, is constant. Like
Yes.
there's a reason why mainstream music sounds the same, because it's playing that same tone. You know, even look
Yeah.
at 30 years ago, like music had more variety to it. You know, and this
Yes.
is going on a very more micro level, but it's important to look at, like you said, the things we consume. But I think music is very important because you
It
can listen
is.
to lyrics that are going to uplift you, right? Or make you feel like you're digging yourself a bigger hole in the ground and you're just digging your grave,
Yes.
you know?
And people like it, and people like, oh, let's suffer, let's put that music, and
They
I'm going
resonate
to,
with it, you know,
yes, let's suffer.
unfortunately.
They like to listen to it. And that 4032 to 4040, it happened on the Second World War, and it was it was the Germans and all this propaganda and everything, and it just got a standard worldwide.
Yeah.
Now every music is for 40, and what does it do to us? The 42 hertz is the A note. The perfect frequency for the A note is the universal tuning. It's A in 432 hertz, and then you have all the notes with its correspondent frequency and the colors and everything, right?
Mm-hmm.
Uh, so if you have A in 432 hertz, you have the perfect tune, the universal tune, because music is the language of the universe. That's we cannot argue about that. So if you have A on 432 hertz, you are perfect aligned. All your energy bodies, you feel balanced, right? If you have that same note in 440, it's a little bit to the side, not enough for you to perceive by the ear, but it's enough to unbalance you, just the little bit to make you anxious. So you don't feel 100%, but you don't know why. And that's that. And all music worldwide, all instruments, they are tuned into 440. The other day, I have my acoustic guitar right here, and I got it. I said, "Oh, I need to tune it. It's been a while since I last played with it." And then I got my tuner, and I turned it on, and there it was, 440. I was like, okay, and I cannot change
Can't
it because
adjust it.
it's the setup, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I said, oh, okay. Even when I'm going to relax a little bit, I have to remember that thing for the 440 hertz. So that's something that it's real, and it's right in front of our faces, and it's everything to do with the frequencies, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, thank you, Fabio, for coming on today. I think this was
Thank you.
a very fun, light, kind of just jump through different topics here, but thank you so much for coming on for this episode 2 of our Great Awakening kind of show that we have going on.
Perfect.
So everyone, if you haven't checked out Fabio's YouTube channel, Espiritualidade Independente, check it out. And then you can find me on 90 Degree Turns. So thank you so much, Fabio.
Thank you.